Right, so we got to this bit here, and I think I can't remember now whether I looked at the highlights at this point, but when I did, they weren't very nice. So if we look at it from the most, well, one of the critical directions to look at this, so this is using isoang, so I've got the y direction on here, and so it's showing that here it's all to do with the tangency of that surface. So here it looks fine, and then down here it just becomes a funny mess of highlights, which doesn't seem to make much sense. It sort of suggests that it's very flat across here, and it's inflecting and all sorts of things going on. So definitely not right. The other direction that we can look at it from is along the x direction. That this makes most sense. So again, it looks a bit strange. This looks okay because it's going to go from up here curling that way, and then when it gets down here it should be like this. So you'd expect the bit in between to be something in between that and that, really, to make any sense, but it's doing something weird in there. The z direction isn't much use because it just it's not going to show us anything more, really. Down here it sort of shows us a similar thing to the x, because it's from a sort of similar, in a sense, it's a similar direction, in a sense that it's like almost not 45 degrees, but coming down here where it's very much at 90 degrees to the z direction, it never makes much sense to show the highlights in that sense. Actually, that's not z, that's z. So you don't see much going on there. It's really x and y. So the ones to go for are the sort of tangent directions, if you like. So x is a sort of tangent to that surface in that direction, and then y is it sort of tangent to that direction. They're the most useful ones usually. So I need to look at this in more detail. Now let's bring back some of these other surfaces. So we've got body. I'm just going to change the colors of these so we can see which bits belong to which layer. And we've also got bonnet detail, which we'll bring in later. So I'm going to move that up here. And I mean, yes, the last time we were doing this, I was struggling to move these things around, and I don't quite know why, whether it was maybe I was in 2025 or something, but if you go into the filter here, you can sort these by alphabetical order or any of these other things. And I looked at it and thought, have I set it as alphabetic? Because then you wouldn't be able to move things around. But that's not the case. Hierarchy just means it's a bit difficult to describe, really. I think it's just to do with the grouping. So if we look in here, we've got all of these objects in here, so it's to do with grouping, but it should let you move things around, which is what it did this morning. But so let's have a look in here. We'll bring back the mesh. So we want to just check how far out from this mesh we are. So I'm going to concentrate on this area for now. And so if I look into there, we are a bit high on the mesh here. So you can see the mesh sections in brown there, and it's very high up here. So this is clearly not quite right anyway. Very difficult area because so many things are coming together. So let's put CVs on here, and I'll put Y sections on as well. So again, you can see we're high on the data here, and that's probably causing a problem. We're definitely high here. Now we've got this surface here sort of is just a blend surface, so I'm going to just make that into a template for the time being. Oh, let me just do that again, because I didn't want that one as a template. That one I don't want as a template. I want to keep that one. So this one, if I untrim that one, that goes all the way across there. So you can see that's actually far too high in this area. It needs to be brought down. There's a very interesting sort of shape, and that one's a separate surface. So we can look at how these all relate to each other. I'm going to take that, I'm going to get rid of that curve on surface there. I think there was a curve on surface, maybe there wasn't. So we're just going to concentrate on these surfaces here, and this, and this, and this. So it's all relates here, which is what makes it so difficult, because you've got this area joining all this up. And I did suggest last time that you know, that we can make this shorter, but actually I don't really want to do that because it's just more work, and I'm trying to limit how much work we do. So I think we can get away with just modifying these surfaces. So let's first of all put our evaluator locators on here. So I just want to check what we've got in terms of continuity. And we've also got this bit here. So I think the first thing to do is to try and get this closer to the data here. This is another one we want to make sure that doesn't break. Now, of course, this surface here relies on this surface, which relies on this surface, and this surface also relies on it, as does this one. So it's so much going on. So let's go into Object Edit. So we're going to use some history here, continuity, edge, take blending off, put history on. So I want to align that to there with history on. And in this case, I always want to have the vector on in the Z direction so that we don't, so in the top view, it doesn't change. Otherwise, it just goes all over the place. So we've got history on that one. This one, because this is a smaller surface than this one, it makes sense for us to align this to the big surface. So again, with history on, this one needs to be aligned to here. That's going to be a partial edge. And I should be careful on this one again. So this is vector Z. And then also this one. So there's so much changing. This area here, I can't really actually align those two at the same time, because if I try and do that, it'll be conflicting with this one. So we just accept the fact that there's a bit of a gap at the minute, and we can fix that later. It's only 0.1 of a mil, so it should be very fixable. And most of the change we're going to be doing is down here. So what I'm going to try and do is modify this surface, which then affects everything else, and see what effect it has on this surface in here, and see if we can just bring that down onto the section a bit closer. So there's all of these CVs on top of each other, so we've got to find the right one. So it's that one, and of course I've got more than one picked, so I need to make sure what I'm picking here. I'm going to put a bit of mouse sensitivity on there just to slow it down. That one there. So we're just going to move that up and down in the Z direction. And you can see that all of the surrounding surfaces changing as I do that. Now, the fact that that opens up a gap, I'm not worried about, because it's a tiny gap. And the chances are, if I move another CV, that might snap back into place automatically. And if it doesn't, we can fix it anyway. So that looks much better on that section there. It's still high on this edge here, so we're going to have to modify some other CVs, I think, to see if we can do that. But I've also got to keep a careful eye on this one, because that one's also going to go off if I'm not careful. I think I've got sections on that one. So that's because I untrimmed it, that's why. So now they've come on. I need to bring that down onto the data a bit closer. And because I'm pulling that one down, of course, this lifts this up, which then affects that. So it's horrendously complicated what's going on. You have to keep on making sure you're looking around everything. But bearing in mind, you can always do a Control Z, of course, and go back. I mean, there's no reason, you know, why it should be just that point. Of course, it can also be these other points. So this is what makes it doubly difficult, is that there's no one CV that's going to cure this. So that looks good on there. Again, position wise, it's broken. I think actually I've probably got that wrong. No, my mistake here, and I've probably done it on all of these actually, is I've got position influence of 0 on, and that's why position's broken. So if I make that 1, that's fixed the position. It's still, curvature is not 100%, and oh, just switching vector on and putting Z on has actually fixed it. And sometimes you find that, sometimes putting normal on might fix it. Putting, I don't know why I did that. It's now broken it. I went back to Z thinking it would go back to what it was doing, but it's actually changed it. So what I'm going to do there is just open that up. That doesn't want to open up. Right, let's just revert it. So it just takes us back to square one. And we'll align that again. And I'll put vector of Z on. There we go. There's no logic to why vector of Z would work when without vector it didn't work. It's just one of those things. Sometimes it's such a tiny little change that it can be very sensitive to just a setting in the menu sometimes. So let's have a look at, so this is too high still, I can see that. Now on this edge here, we could modify this surface, and obviously we can do that if we've got history on there. So I'm query editing that, and we have got history on. Let me just have a look at that. So I've got blending on. I've got blending on because I've got degree 6 that way. So blending is picking up that middle hull there. But actually I want to make this simpler. So if I take blending off and just reduce that degree to 6, then we only have to worry about those CVs rather than the one in the middle as well, which just adds complexity to it, which we could do without. Now, if I look at those CVs there, they look very peculiar because these CVs are going that way, which makes some sense, but these ones are sort of going up and they all look very odd. So I suspect the highlights aren't going to be much better at all in this area. Let's have a look at this. So ISO ang in the Y direction. Yeah, so the highlights are no better there. I mean, that's probably more continuous here, but this is still a mess here. So there's definitely something not right about that lot. I think the first thing to do is to bring this back down towards the data. Now on this one, let me just go into the line here, because let me query edit it first. No, there's no, if I do query edit, which I'm using, I'm just using the hotkey Q, I can see that there's no history on there. So I need to realign that. So I'll align that to edge, here to that edge there. Again, we should be using vector Z so that in plan view it doesn't change. So I'll keep that on. I mean, I think this is probably lifting this a bit high, and that's down to that surface, but I really don't want to touch that if I have to, unless I absolutely have to. I think also up here, because we've only got this actual, it's only a thin piece of this surface that we're actually going to use. So I really don't want to be touching that block as well, unless I absolutely had to. One of the things that would make this simpler here would be is if we drop the degree across this way, because at the moment we've got 4 CVs to deal with, which makes it more complicated. But of course, if we do that, we break the continuity at that end. But let's just try that. So it does break the continuity, but the advantage of it is that we've only got 3 CVs to worry about. So if we look at that from the front view, the CVs actually look okay because they're all going that way, which is what we'd expect. We want this to curve that way. And we can play around with these. We can move them up and down, and sometimes this does a good job, and sometimes it doesn't. So let's just reduce the mouse sensitivity a bit, or increase it rather. So I'm just moving those around just to get a bit closer to the data. But I'm also looking at the pattern of CVs. So the pattern of CVs becomes easier to see once you've only got 3 CVs to deal with. And the other thing that has reset itself is this pick box size. So I'm going to make that 20, so I pick up the CVs easier. Otherwise I keep missing them and then moving a CV I didn't mean to. This one, of course, we can't move because we want curvature continuity into that end. Now on this side here, We haven't actually got anything in terms of the section on this surface. There's nothing to relate it to. But if you look at this section here, you can see that, again, that this section is coming up too high on the data. So we need to modify this main block there so that this comes down. So I'm looking mainly at these sections here to see what effect this is having here. So that one there, because it's sort of it's rocking the whole thing. So if I pull that down, this comes up. So we might be able to do it with these CVs. Actually, you can see the pattern of CVs here looks much more consistent now with these ones. I mean, that one looks a bit strange, but there's so much going on here. I think there will be some strangeness in these areas. So although I'm moving this CV, I'm looking down here to see what's going on. So I'm pulling that one down, which is moving the small surface up in this area. And then this one is raised a little bit as a result of that. So we need to pull that down. It's actually pulling both of those down, really. And then there's a third one as well, of course, which also has an effect. So the CV patterns look much better on this surface than they did, I think. So let's have a look and see whether this is any good. That's actually better because at least although it's got this huge wobble in it, it's a bit more clear what's going on here, whereas before it sort of all went very sort of muddy. It was difficult to see what was going on. So I'm just going to save that. So that's, I mean, you can align things and then modify the parent surface, if you like, and see what happens, and that can work. But like we've done before, sometimes that doesn't work very well, and so again, I'm not worried about that continuity at the moment. That's not too far out, and it's something we can fix just by increasing the degree back up. But having the low degree is good for making it easier to modify. So I'm going to delete the construction history of that. I'm going to get rid of that locator. So the other option, rather than just aligning something with history on, which can work perfectly fine, that's what we're doing down here, is to overlap the surfaces, which is what we've done before in some areas. And there's a couple of things on this. This is, because this is curved in this plan view, these CVs are curved in that plan view, it's not so easy to see what's going on when you look at it from the front view as if they were straight. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, let's overlap these. So I'm going to take this through here. So overlapping them just means that I can then see where that surface is heading. And the other thing is it starts to exaggerate. Oh, didn't mean to do that. I need to break the history on here, actually. Let's go and delete the history on there. So let's take this and overlap it. The other thing is that you can see when you extend it, you start to see wobbles in the CVs, which you couldn't see when it was a smaller surface. So that's a benefit of actually doing this process. These look quite odd, but I think that might be cured if I just do an align here, maybe. Let's have a look. So let's just try and align that. And I mean, the thing is, if I put vectors Z on it, it's just going to keep that pattern. But if I take the vector off, then it actually sort of helps line these up a bit better. And although it's not aligned 100%, it doesn't matter because we're going to sort that out later. The CVs going this way aren't right, but at least in the sense of the Y direction, they're better spaced now. So I'm going to keep that as it is. I will take history off that. So I don't want that interfering at the minute. And actually, I'm not really sure about that. Let me just go into there again. Let's go and just, because they are pushed over to that side. So I'm thinking that's probably because we've got position influence of 1, and let's see what happens with 3. So that's okay when it's 3. It's strange how that's pushed to one side, but I'm going to leave that as it is. And then we can sort these other CVs out a little bit. So I'm just going to use slide here just to move those down so they're a bit more consistent with that. But I want them to sort of maybe expand out a little bit so they're a bit more uniform at this end, just for consistency with this outer surface. I think that's probably a good thing to do. So yeah, what I was saying is that, before was when you got curved CVs like that and you look at them from the front, you can't really tell whether what you're seeing is a result of the CVs having this sort of angle on them, or is it something wrong with the section going across in the Y direction. I'm actually going to extend that a little bit further. So I'm going to take it past this section here, because what I want to do is straighten this up. And the simplest way to do that is to go into Surface Edit. I'm going to go Trim Convert, Project Z, that one, and I'm going to pick up the section, the X section of this surface. So just make sure we pick the right one. So it's that one. And then we can trim convert that to there. So what that'll do is straighten up that front edge, and hopefully the ones in between will be reasonably straight. You can see they're not, but we can then straighten them up with planarized hull very easily if we can find them. That one, that one, that one, and that one. Oh, and that one. So they're all now nice and straight. So when we look at it from the front view, it'll be easier to interpret the CVs there. Obviously, this is going to have changed the align here. So let's go into Object Edit, and we'll align that. So I'm going to use Vector Z this time because I want to keep the CVs where they are. And I'm not going to worry about that gap. I mean, it's quite big, but because it's right down here, it doesn't matter for the time being. More concerned about this shape at the front. And of course, when we move this around, because I've extended this so much, you can see the CVs go up and down all over the place. These ones are completely dictated by the align. These ones here, we're going to have to sort out. And you can also see that by extending it, we can see that this surface actually isn't going in the right direction. It's lifting way up. So if we look at the sections on there, they're way above where they should be. So the first thing to do, and bearing in mind I've just trim converted it to this section here, we're a long way off that one. We may not be able to get close to that, but let's have a look. So let's take the CVs off there just to avoid confusion. And then I'm going to put no mass sensitivity on because I've got to pull these down a long way. Now, like I say, I'm not going to get to this section because that's taken care of by this surface, but I obviously want to get a bit closer to the sections up here, and also want all my CVs to go this way, not going that way. So that one's clearly completely wrong. So it's another one where you can't just move one CV, you've got to move several of them. The other advantage of this is now we're picking up these sections here. I can see this in relation to the data, which I couldn't really see before. I'm trying to get this to go the right way, but also get this closer to the data here. So the data is the brown section there, which is quite difficult because it's very difficult. Well, I think we need to push this one down so that this one has to then go up to compensate. So as a result of that, both of them should be going that way and not the other way. And this one probably needs to be rounded a little bit. So if we're parallel to this section here, that would be good. If we were parallel to this section, it'd be good. I'm not expecting to get to this section at all, but at least get something that looks similar in terms of the shape. I mean, I might be able to get closer to that data, but I don't want to pull it further down here. It's got to be at the right height here, roughly. You can see this is quite a difference between here and there. That's why I think really that block that comes off probably ought to be changed, really, but I don't want to do it. Just want to avoid that if I can. So I don't really want to do that. Okay, so these are sort of, I mean, so these quite flat, which is fine. But when it's very flat, it's more difficult because it's difficult then to see whether that point is above. You know, if you imagine a line between that point and that point, you could literally draw a line between the two if you wanted to, but it's a bit difficult to see that whether that's above that line or not. You can see this one because it's on the edge and it's easier to tell that that's above the line, and then we're on the line and then below it. But this one's more difficult to see, as is this one, because it's gone very flat. And then what we can do with that, I mean, first of all, I suppose we should look at that, see what the ISO angle looks like. So that in itself looks okay. It sort of does a bit of a strange thing here. Maybe that's right, maybe it's wrong, don't know. Until I think we need to put this other surface in now. So we've got, if I go into query edit, oh, that one, yeah, that's aligned to that one. That one is no longer aligned. And so we need to bring that back. So let's put the CVs on there. And we're going to object edit, edge. So I'm going to align that to there, and that's going to be in the Z direction. And we put history on that one. And this one, I mean, when I've done this before and overlapped them, I've trimmed, converted this back, but actually we don't need to do that. And it would be better not to, really. So I can just do a reject in this case. The reason I don't want to do that is because this surface, this surface here, I noticed that's gone slightly off, actually, in terms of not being a straight line. I must have been out of the view or something. I've moved that slightly. So let's just correct that. I'm just going to move that point along a bit there. And then linearize the whole again. It's not made much difference, but it's just good to have it tidy. Yeah, I don't know what's happened there, actually. I don't know what, I've obviously moved that slightly wrong. Because that one, again, that's not quite on the same spot there. So what we can do there is, because it's only a small move, I can pick those two CVs, move it left to right, and snap it with control to that point there. So that's another thing we could do. So if they've gone off, you can just snap it left to right. I don't know why those have gone off. I must have done something wrong when I was moving them around. And but it won't have made much difference. And so now we've got that aligned there. So let's have a look at these in terms of the highlights. And so when we put the highlights on, of course, we've got overlapping surfaces, which makes it difficult to see. But what we can do is create curves, and we can say show the curves only. And so the highlights look better than they did. And you can sort of start to see the trend, I think, that we need to go for, in the sense that this is going this way quite clearly, and then it needs to come in here. And we've got this funny lump in the middle, and we just want to get rid of that. So let's go and save that. So because we've got history on this surface here, we can, I'm just going to take the CVs off just because it's so difficult to see otherwise. And we just move these CVs up and down, see what the effect is on those highlights. It actually looks like this point is too high. So I'm ignoring the mesh now, because we just have to at some point. As you start to refine this, you can increase the mouse sensitivity, and actually the movements you're making, you might feel that they're enormous, but actually they're making hopefully very little difference to actually where the surface is in relation to the mesh. So it's just a question of trying out whatever CVs you think. If you push it that way and it's going the wrong way, pull it down a bit. So I'm trying to get this to go more smoothly across here, and it's sort of a bit of instinct. It's a trial and error. You just but the key thing is don't just try and pull one CV and hope that that's going to fix everything, because it never does. You have to do multiple CVs. and you start to get a, as you work on the area, you start to get a feel for what you need to do to the surfaces. So it seems like if I push it down here, that's having a good effect. It's very much sort of sculpting, really. It doesn't matter if this comes off at the end, as long as where it transitions between one and the other goes the right way, then that's the key thing. The end of this doesn't really matter too much. I mean, I would expect this to start to go the right way, but it may be that this will go straight and this other surface will curve round. So this is putting a bit more crown in it. I'm thinking this is I'm probably pushing this down probably too far here. When I look back at the data, I think I will have changed it quite a lot. And but if we can at least if you can get it sort of smoother, then hopefully we can then massage it in position to get it back towards the data, bearing in mind that we are interpreting the data, we're not trying to copy the data exactly. I've definitely pushed this down a long way, and so I think that's might be too much, but I mean, the other thing you can do, it's useful to have those highlights there, I think, but of course, if you find that difficult to see, you can always trim it back. Now that's saying if I try and trim it back, it's going to remove history, which I don't want to do. I'll leave that as it is. So let's have a look at the data again. Yeah, I've pushed it so far down on that data that it's going to be too much there, and it's pushed it all the way down here as well. And so it makes me think that, in fact, it's given us better highlights in that direction, but having pushed it down that far, maybe we need to lift it up a bit, and maybe we need to look at these surfaces again. So let's have a look and see whether I've still got continuity on there. I have still got the history on there. So let's see if we can move these points up a bit to try and get it a bit back onto the data there. And that's having quite a good effect on those highlights. Actually, it's softening that one, just moving that point up. Now, if I put some more mass sensitivity on there, and let's see what happens if I then. So if I grab hold of that point, I'm going to shift that one, and then pull all of that up. See how far we can take that and try and get closer to the data. Yeah, and then we could also, so by picking a group of them, then I'm hopefully keeping the smoothness to some extent. So I'm using shift and picking those CVs, and then I'm going to see if I change that, whether that has a good effect. So I'm putting a bit more crown into that. So it looks like we have to tackle the problem from both ends, down here and up here. See if that do anything more with that. Obviously, it's not just that point; it's all the other points around it. I mean, the great thing in Alias is the fact that you have got this history, does mean that you can do these experiments. I'm just wondering if I move these points all together, what effect that might have. Or maybe I need to move just that point. The only thing, this all goes quite smoothly across here. The only thing here is this is, I mean, the S is not a problem. That's what it must do. It just sort of fattens out a bit there, I feel. So I really I need to just adjust that area a little bit, I think. Although well, you do see it because it's on this surface here. You can spend days doing this if you want to. The thing is, when you look at the highlights along the highlights, then you can see tiny, tiny, tiny little S-ings going on. So it just depends what level you want to take it to, really. But I'm just going to delete the history off this, and actually there is no history on there. So let me trim this back. So as I say, that's got to extend it. That will destroy the history on that surface there for the time being. But it would be worth just having a look at that. And I'm going to save that again. And we can pick, we just pick the surfaces there. And if I go into diagnostic, ISO ang, so I don't want the lines on now. I want to take the curves off, delete the curves, and just have a look at that. That's looking pretty good. I mean, it's a heck of a lot better than it was. It's just there. It's just sort of not quite right. So I just think a little bit of a tweak there might just get that to go the right way. And we can, with this, you know, I projected this before. We can do this by aligning this, and also the CVs here look much better. So let's go into align here. So I'll try it just to the edge. As I say, that's not always the ideal method of doing it, but if I say edge vector Z, just be careful that you put position influence of 0 on. Otherwise it moves all the CVs across there, which we don't want. And I've got history on there, so we can see that now as a trimmed surfaces, just easier to see what's going on. So let's take these CVs off here, and then we'll put those highlights back on. And we'll put just the curves on. See if we can improve that very slightly. So I've got mass sensitivity of 50 on. So it's whether I can just get rid of that little S-ing going on there. And I know I'm pulling this down again, so hopefully that won't be a problem. Again, you look at the CV patterns, you can see that one's quite flat. That's quite flat. That one's a little bit peaky in the middle, but then that's what it looks like it needs actually. But maybe that one needs to be a little bit higher. It's that one. I think that one's the one that's out of tune with the other ones. So these are looking closer in terms of the pattern. and that's helping. I think that's much better. So let's hope that when I put the sections back on, that we're not too far from the data. We're not. We're slightly low on the data, but I think, you know, when it depends where you compare it to, and the important thing is we have to have good quality surfaces. So that's essential. So let's just pick all of those surfaces again, and we'll get rid of the curves. That's so much better. That's really nice now. I'm happy with that. And then we can also look at horizontal, vertical, and just rotate that model around, try and get the highlights going across at different angles, maybe put more repeats on, just see if it all flows nicely. Oh, the other thing that we want on iso-ang, so I've looked at the Y direction, but not the X direction. So the X direction, I think looks okay. You know, we could work on that even more, but I think that'll be okay. Another way of looking at this actually is to take, say, these, if we take these sections here, and I'm going to save this again. And the other way to look at this is with sections. So if I go into sections and I'll create a new section, a Y section. So I'm going to create a discrete Y section, and I'm going to put them at various locations along here. So I'm just clicking on here, and then we can put curvature on. We can open up that menu, change the curvature scale. So actually that's not too bad. I mean, this is curvature aligned. You could spend a lot more time trying to get this more G3 continuous, but that's not too bad. You often see curvatures like this, and it's perfectly acceptable. Main thing I wanted to check there was whether the curvature was coming in, whether it's flattening off too much or anything like that. But actually, that doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's not perfect, but I think it'll do. And if the highlights are the most important thing, but curvatures are another good way of looking at these things. So what I'm going to now try and do is just try and bring everything together. So this is aligning here. So let's go into align. So hopefully this won't be a problem. And we're going to edge align that to there. And then we'll increase the degree like we had before. Now I've got position influence of 0 on. This is the only thing that worries me slightly, is the position influence of 0. We don't close up that gap. So it's keeping the CVs where they are. Now, if I increase that to 1, it should fix it. But does it then make the CVs look weird? It doesn't really. I mean, it's slightly, the positioning of those CVs, I think the only ones, those ones could do with being shifted across. If we use slide, bearing in mind I've saved this, so if this doesn't work out, we can just go back. But if I slide that along a bit, just so that we get this, you can see that sort of dips down in the middle there, and I don't like that. If you slide, then always make the white arrow go along the end tangent. That's the thing to do, because then it'll change you'll have least change to the shape. Then that's the idea. So let's put highlights back on in the Y direction, and hopefully that's not had any nasty impact on there. Well, it's slightly affected that, possibly. So let's just do that again. I'm just going to put curves on. Hopefully we can just get this once and for all fixed. Actually a bit weird around there, isn't it? And because it's got lots of mass sensitivity on, I'm hoping this is not going to have too much of an impact. I think that'll do. delete those. Because we've got other surfaces to put on top as well. So once you start to put those on, some of the things that you think are a real problem disappear really. Hopefully. Right, let's put some sections on again. Just double check that we're not too far away from the data. So it is a bit deep there. It's a bit, yeah, it's a bit low on the data in places there, but I think hopefully we'll get away with that. So let's bring some other stuff back in. Well, let's just go around and just check that our continuities first. So none of this should have changed. Now that one there, I know that was broken before, wherever the edge is. It's that one there. I can see there's a little bit of a problem in that the CVs are different. So let's go in here, because we're trying to align on several edges here. It's important to take the history off when we do this. So we check the continuity there, and we check the continuity there, which we haven't got a surface for. Take the mesh away. And so that's body side. So let's bring that into this layer here. Okay, so we just want to align this one way or the other. So let's go into Object Edit. Usually best to align the small to the large. So let's try and do that. And we want to put position inverter 1 on so that those join up, and of course that will break something. And if that doesn't work, let's try G1. So the gap is now 0.0017 there. And we could try just doing vector, and another one where Z worked. I was going to try project view, because sometimes that will work, where the CV is just moving in this view direction. Obviously it's only tangency, but again we can cheat and see, yeah, we've done it, because it was such a small change. We might have been able to do it with just G0 sometimes, and you do those sort of tricks, and it saves you a ton of time. I want to bring the mesh back in. I mean, these CVs here look quite peculiar, but bearing in mind that they're three-dimensional, so we're not just seeing that curvature in that direction, but we're seeing the shape in that direction, and then there's a lot of shape going on there. So with the mesh on, you can see it starts to curve back on itself. So, and hopefully that's okay. We could do with lifting up there, to be honest. We just see if we got history on this one. Yes, we have. And history on this one? No. Just save that again. I should have saved it under a new name, but just going to put history on that one again. And we'll make sure that we see how easy that is to break. If I didn't put vector Z on, we've then screwed it up. So got to be so careful. I'm just wondering if I can just get this lifted up a bit here, because this looks a bit low, to be honest, but without affecting this too much. So we should take the mesh. Oh, we need the mesh on, of course. I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll go into tools, and we just promote that section there. So we just keep a few sections on here and that one there. So this just turns them into NURBS, and then we can take the actual sections off. So we've got those to relate to. I say we turn the sections off. We've got the sections on, of course. I want to take the mesh off. So we've got these. This is actually curve data from the mesh, or copies. So I'll just create that as, I'll call it sections, just so it's a different color. So you can see those green lines. So they're from the mesh, so we can get an indication of the mesh without having the whole mesh in there, which is just too much to see really. And then we go to diagnostics, ISO ang, create our curves. We show only the curves. Not really interested in them out here, but they're going to come anyway. But I just want to keep an eye on those ones as I change this surface here. So again, I've got mass sensitivity up to 50, and I just want to see if I can lift these points up without badly affecting that, but get this a bit close to that data. It has a big effect on this, but it's not a bad effect actually. It's okay. Seems to want to have to move it quite a long way. So pull that up there. And then the other thing we can do is pull this point down. It really doesn't seem to have any effect on there, and that's obviously because I clearly haven't got history on there. I haven't got that actually aligned with history on. So that's why nothing's happening on this surface. So I'm doing big changes and nothing's going on. So I need to go in there and do that. So that's got history on it. So let's just have a look at what I've done here. That looks okay. It may be that we need to go this far back, move that point. I know this edge is quite wobbly, and I would ideally want to sort that out, but it's not having, it won't have any impact on the surface quality as such. So I need to move that up there to get this close to that section, and then this point can also be pushed down just to get this closer to the section. That's still looking okay. So we can probably massage that a little bit. That's getting close to the data there, and this is actually looking right. So there's a little bit of a tweak there to do. Maybe I'll put the mass sensitivity to 50. The main area of concerns here, not so much on the edge, because that's going to be slightly covered up with another surface. So right, let's take these, I'll take those sections off, and we'll take the curves off, delete the curves there. So that looks okay. This looks okay. Wobble it about a bit. Oh, that's looking nice. Happy with that. And then we'll bring the mesh back in. Oh, that's much better now. I'm happy with that. That's much closer. And I know things are broken, but by small amounts again. So definitely going to save that one. Right, so let's try and get this all sorted again. So as you get to this point many times where you think, it's so close, and then you see something that you've got to fix. And I don't know why this is broken here, but again, it should be easy to fix, hopefully. Let's see if we can do it. I don't even know. I've no idea why that went off. To be honest, obviously something went wrong, but this one's going to be a partial edge. And then we're going to have, oh, I've got history on there. That doesn't help, does it? I probably should just go and drag that around there, delete history on everything, because then that'll eliminate those problems. It's probably because of history. I must have had history on when I didn't really want it or something, I don't know. So again, we'll align the small one into the large one, don't want partial on, breaks it again, G1, angle's very small there, and then we'll use vector, and miraculously it fixes it. It is literally trial and error. There's no, I can't tell you what the formula is. It's just back off from G2 to G1, try different vector options, see if any of that fixes it easily, rather than having to spend hours and hours trying to get it with the, you know, because in theory I should be putting it on G2 and it should work, but it's always the case. It'll break another edge when you've done one edge. This one here, again, that had history on it. I'm sure. Well, of course, I've just deleted history, haven't I? So, and so quite why that's gone off, I don't know either, but it doesn't matter. It's only affecting the curvature there. So we'll go for, we've got to, because it's curvature mismatch, we can't just do G1 and expect that to fix it. You know, if I go and check that, you should say there's a problem with G2. The only time that might fix it is if you have position influence of 0 on, and that was the reason why it wasn't working. So you have to put G2 on here. Now it's not actually making it any better. If you notice that when I've got G1 on, it says 0.108, G2 on, it actually gets worse. And so there's no guarantee that that it's going to fix it. Now, one of the things I said before is that the spacing of the CVs this way seems very weird, but actually that has an effect on the continuity there. So you sometimes find that you can slide the CVs along. Let me just put the CVs on here because that's aligned to it. We've got to have those on when we do this. But if I go into there, and of course I've taken history off in the menu, haven't I? So let's just put history on there. And I make that G2, but I put on, yeah, so I put on G2 down here, but not up here. So it's just G1. Now, if I adjust these positions of these CVs slightly, we might find, I'm going to adjust this one here slightly backwards and forwards, might find we can fix that. Or not, as the case may be. Now that's fixed it. Obviously it's broken this, but it has actually fixed it just by sliding that up and down there, which is totally counterintuitive, but that's the way the maths works. Up here, we'll need to put on, we need to realign that. And this has got to be in the Z direction again, as always. And so that's fine now. So there's lots of tricks with the line that aren't obvious at all. Okay, got to save that as well. Now we've got a template in here, so I'm going to untemplate that. So we need to start fixing these surfaces. Let's take the mesh off and let's take all the sections off just to try and clear things up so we can see a bit clearer what's going on. So take that lot off. So what we've got here, we've got that surface which has got a curve on surface there. This surface won't have, I got rid of it. So I need to get this surface and this surface to join up. I'm not sure what that object is there. That's a curve or something that's just left over. I'm going to delete it anyway. And we can take all the CVs off everything that we don't need. So all of this is joined up here. We need to so let's concentrate on the bits that we need to fix now. So it's that lot there. So these are the joining surfaces. Actually, it is that, it's literally that. What's that going on in there? Is that a curve there? It is, yeah. Get rid of that curve. I'm just going to make that invisible for the time being, just to check that the continuity there is as we want, which it isn't. So in top view there, let's align that one. So it's going to be G2 edge partial between that surface and this one. And we want vector of Z on. So it's saying position is 0.03, so it's quite a long way out. So I think the only option there is to make that 4. One thing that we haven't actually looked at here, so maybe I'll leave this area for the time being. One thing that's going on here is that these corners don't join up, and so we need to be able to align all of that. We've got to join all of those corners up, and let's bring that surface back in. So we want to trim convert these to that corner there. So let's put in a curve. So we go from that edge. We're going to go Control Alt down there and across here. Oh, not quite in top view. Classic mistake. And get rid of that curve. We don't need that one. So just made sure I'm in top view again. So when I do use the right mouse button, it actually comes up in the right place. And then we can extend that one that way. And then we go into Surface Edit, Trim Convert, Project Z. That one to there. And then that one to there. And of course, they're on the wrong layer because I'm in the wrong layer. So let's put those into body there. So I'm going to leave this area because this, for the time being, because that needs fixing. And also we need to look at the quality of these surfaces going around here because we haven't actually looked at that yet. But let's just try and see if we can hang these off these other surfaces here. So now this is going to just be position aligned to this edge and this edge. And you can sometimes, but I'm not saying that this will happen, sometimes you can get away with aligning an edge of one surface to several other edges, but there's absolutely no guarantee that's going to work, and I don't think it will, but we might as well try it just to show you that you can do this potentially. I'll take partial edge off, so I'm going to do G0 edge, take create history off while I'm thinking of it. Let's just get rid of any history there, because history is the thing that causes problems most when you're trying to align things. So let's just try and align this. So if you try and align that surface to there, if you press the Shift key, you can pick both edges. So I held the Shift key down there, but you can see the gap is not 100%. If I take position influence down to 0, it's useful though, because it can be useful for roughing things in. So you know, if you don't care about the tolerances too much, at least it's got it in the right ballpark, you know, so the maximum gap there is 0.2, but the chances of that actually aligning, even if I make that degrees 7, even if I increase the spans, it's never going to align 100%, but it can be useful, and sometimes it does align. If it was over a small area, you might be able to get away with it, but here not, but it's worth a try. But it's worth knowing that exists. So I'm going to trim convert this, and again, this is just going to be a line from here. Hopefully I'm in the top view this time. I can see I am, because it's green. And then we need to be in the right layer again. And then we just do a trim convert on that to there. And the trim converts, oh, didn't mean to do that. Ah, damn it. So I've just lost it, and it won't let you. Unfortunately, it doesn't let you do. It won't let you do a Control Z. Well, it lets you do Control Z, but nothing happens, and which is a pain. So what we'll do there is I'll just save it under a new name, and because I'm doing a trim convert to a line. If it was a detach, I could get away with it. I think I actually extend it out again and do it. I mean, it is a possibility that I could possibly extend that if I went into. I'll try it, but I would go back to the old model. That's why I save models regularly, because I'm always making these sort of errors, and this is the quickest way of getting back. But let's just try it with extend, which I'm looking for. There we go. Extend. So if I do say extend. Rather than merging, which will keep the same surface, if I take merge off and say go, because I've trimmed trim converted it to a line. When I extend it, it won't go exactly back to where it was, but it might be close enough that we can get away with it. So that looks okay, actually. We might be able to get away with that. And so now if I go into Object, into Surface Edit, Trim Convert, this time I do want to just keep the one. What I should have done is said divide, and then it would have kept both bits. So the chances are that won't be aligned there, but it really doesn't matter anyway, because we're going to have to fix that, align that one to this one anyway. It's the other way around. So it's close enough that we got away with that. So let's go into Object Edit, Align. So this time I'm going to align this one to here, and I've got position inputs of 0, 1, so it's not quite matched. I can just drag that. Don't have to make it 1 if you don't want to. I mean, if 1 pushes the CVs all over the place, then you probably don't want to do that. But you see, I can make it quite small values there, 0.1. So it's not exactly the same CVs as that surface, but it's got the position alignment. But I will make this 1 because I do want to align those in that sense. But and then we can do the same thing on here. It sort of doesn't matter too much which order you do this in. This one, because I've got quite a high degree there, I'm pretty certain I can drop that down. So I'll drop it down to 4. Always drop in the, every time you can, drop the degree, because it'll just help in the long term. And then this one, I'm going to use project on and Z on into that surface there. And then that one into there. And then let's have a look at the connection here. So there's every chance that that won't be aligned, of course. I think actually what I should do is delete that curve on surface, because I now want to align this way, and I want to straighten up these edges, which is going to move it off that curve on surface for sure. So I do G2 edge. This one is going to be, because it's to the end there, we want position influence of 1 on definitely, and then we'll align that to there. So of course it breaks that, always does, pretty much. Now if I change that down to G1, does it make much difference? It does make a little bit of difference, but not much. So now I have a look at the G2 and it's actually fine. It might be that all we need to do here is to maybe increase the degree along that shape. So if I do G1, let's do G1 there. So it's down to 0.03, and I'll look at G2. Yeah, so we do need G2 on there. Let's make that, I don't want project on, that's what's the mistake there. So I want edge on, and let's go back to G1 and see if that makes any difference when I use edge. So that gap has opened up a little bit. Let's just try doing this. So delete that curve on surface and do this, G2 project. This will probably break this again, which it does, but can I increase the degree? Will that help? It won't not help, so I might as well go with that, and then we'll go round here. This is alignment for you. This is what happens. You have to go around in circles until you fix it. So G2, let's try G1. It's marginally off there. Let's have a see if that's G2. It isn't. So the other option, like we did before, is maybe we can just slide that along a little bit. See if we can get that down a little bit more. Let me get rid of that. Oh, we could always split the surface as well. That's another option. I don't like to split the surfaces unless I absolutely have to. I like to keep the model as absolutely clean as we possibly can. Let's just try project. I'm just going to try once more, and we'll put G1 on, G2. Right, although it's not actually improved that, but I think this might be a case of we just need to move some CVs. So let's go into CVs, put loads of mouse sensitivity on, maybe 500. This is only that tiny little point there that we want to fix. And again, it's counterintuitive, but maybe if we move a point on there and make sure that I'm going in the right direction. So I'm moving it in the Z direction, and just by a tiny amount will that fix it. It seems to switch from one to the other, and it's also breaking the position, which is not surprising because I'm picking the edge. That's not too surprising. The other option that breaks that is maybe on this side. So I know that's broken the position there, or we could try that point. These are the very annoying ones because they just, you think that should go in. I mean, it's so small that you could say, oh, I'm not going to bother, because let me try one more thing we could try. So we could increase the degree on this one as well. Normally you'd want to align that the other way, but let's just try that. So let's go edge into there, to there, and we'll make that G2. Even then it doesn't want to know. Let's try sliding that along. So by sliding it along, I fix the G2. I'm going to increase the degree and see if that will help. So we're dangerously close to a result. I mean, it's 0.001. Let's go back to 6 because that was very, very close anyway. Get rid of that curve on surface. Just reproject that on G2. That's it. Yeah, so you just have to keep going until you get it. Like I say, you could split that. That would be another way to do it. But the fewer splits you have, the better, because otherwise you end up with you're more likely to end up with wobbles in the surfaces. So it's best to avoid the splits if you can. But ultimately, you have to do what you have to do to get it to work. I do want to try and get this surface in as well. So this one, let's hope this one goes in okay. Now this locator there is for this whole surface. So I'm going to delete that because it's going to be very confusing when we look at this surface here. So I think the first thing there is to maybe to align that in Z. So we'll align that to that surface there. That's the right surface, isn't it? Yeah, good. And then we do G0 on this edge. So this one we want edge on, and we want position influence of 0 on, of 1 on, so it's the same CVs as this side. And then we'll try and align it here, and this is where the fun's going to be, of course, as always. So we haven't quite got continuity. It's 0.11, so it's very, very close. I wonder whether if we took edge off and just had it slightly skewed, yeah, we get a bit closer. So I think maybe that's not quite 100% edge aligned there, if you like. That edge isn't quite where it should be, but this is now so close. I know this has gone off. And then we just go and align this one into, got to be careful which edge we pick. So it's that one, it's going to be partial, and do that. And then we must put projection of Z on. So this is moved it off there by 0.002. This one's 0.02. And so this one, we can get rid of that curve on surface. And we'll just try that again here. So G2 project onto here. Hooray, that's all gone in nicely. Let's just hope we get this G0 in there. I mean, that's so small that you could do that manually if you wanted to, I'm sure. G0 edge, that one. Now it's broken it there, so, but only it's a relatively small amount. Let's see if I take the position influence down, it gets much closer in terms of the curvature. So although that's not theoretically perfect, it's actually still position aligned and the curvature's come down. So let's see if we can just manually fix this one. Ooh. I'll tell you what's happened there. The reason for that weird shape in the middle, of course, is that I've got a high degree here, and I wasn't really thinking about it, and I wasn't thinking about how different that edge was to where we should be. So I should have put blend on or dropped the degree down when I did it. I could go and manually fix those CVs because the ones that are affected by curvature this way, these three, These are affected on this from this end. The only ones that I can change are these, because that's also controlled by curvature that way. So we could actually just go and move those manually. We might as well do that, to be honest. Let's go and put the mouse sensitivity right down. So we'll look at that from the front, and we just move those down in the Z direction and try and make them look neat and tidy, compared with the, if you look at the angle there going through, we need those to progress from one to the next. Yeah, the CVs could probably be improved slightly. That one looks a bit dodgy, but let's hope we can get away with it. It's just another, there's just so much going on there that it's very difficult to get all of these to work together. So I'm just going to try and fix that problem. So let's put in loads of mouse sensitivity. I just tried it with 10. It's far too insensitive. There we go. So that was just to fix that curvature there. Because we got such a high degree, I thought that should be possible. This surface we need to trim back there, and then let's have a look and hope that the highlights are okay. So there's the Y highlight looks absolutely perfect. X highlight looks okay. Does it all flow nicely? Yes, it does. Bear in mind this is a sharp edge here, so the curvatures, the highlights don't join up there, of course. And let's have a look at our other display here, just to get some sort of feel for what that looks like in reality, maybe. That doesn't look too bad. You could go on forever in this area. This is such a complicated area. I'm sure there's other, I could improve that further. Like I say, I can see that the CVs there go up a bit, but I can't change those CVs without changing this surface, which, so it's all, everything's connected to everything else. So it's tricky. Yeah, so there's probably something that we could do in that area. But of course, this is aligned to here, so we can't change this without changing this or this. But I think it's good enough. I think by the time we put in all the detail, you won't really notice those things. I mean, one of the things that I must do is save. But having done all of this work, you can also find that there's still problems with the model. If I go and delete all the locators and we take all of the edges off, and one of the things you want to look at is just rotating the model and just checking the horizon line to see if there's any funnies in that. There shouldn't be, but you can get surprised that all the highlights look fine, but when you look at the horizon lines, it doesn't look fine. And the other thing is, of course, the lines going through these areas, you can find that they don't necessarily relate to each other well. And even though the highlights might look like perfect, and so it's a tricky job.